What is up, everyone? This is Shane from Stoner's Woodworking, and today I have 2 pine cutting boards that I'm going to be putting to the test. So I'm in a couple of woodworking groups on Facebook, and I've heard enough debates. I've seen people post some pictures of their pine cutting boards and have filed through the comments and seen everyone say, "What are you doing? You can't make a cutting board out of pine. It'll never last. It's awful. What are you doing?" So I decided to take it into my own hands and go ahead and test it out and see if they really are as bad as everyone thinks, or maybe you can make a cutting board out of pine. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you how I make them real quick. I'm going to be doing an end grain one and a face grain one to really get a good test. And then we're going to be doing some cutting. So without further ado, here we go. Bentley. Alright, so I got my boards finished. I got my end grain one here. I got my face grain one here. And before I start, I just want to say these boards are definitely not the fanciest. I made them just to get the job done, just so you guys can get the gist and see if they can really hold up. Now, for my normal cutting boards, I would usually put handles on them and juice grooves even, but not in this case. So I got my fillet knife, I got my sharpener. We're gonna try to sharpen this sucker before we give it a test, just to really test the boards out. And I'm going to be making some cuts, so here we go. So this is with, I would say, medium pressure, and you can really start to get a feel that it's scratching pretty good without even cutting anything. So now I'm going to make some cuts with hard pressure, and we're going to see what happens. Oops. Yeah, they're really starting to show up now, I would say, for sure. All right, now we're gonna set this one aside and test out this guy. Again, we're gonna start out with some light cuts, move into some medium cuts, and then do some heavy, deep cuts. So these are the light cuts here. I'm really not seeing anything so far. All right, now we're gonna do some medium cuts. Still not seeing anything actually. So let's go and do a close-up here real quick before we do the deep cuts. So I'm still really not seeing any marks at all other than the drum sander burn marks. So just disregard that. But I really am not seeing many knife marks at all so far. So let's go ahead and do some deep cuts. Now this is using like maximum pressure without breaking anything. Trying to go in all different directions here. Still nothing. Honestly, it still looks really good. Even looking from the side here, I still can't see anything. Wow, that is impressive. So here is a close-up of the face grain one after the first test, and you can definitely see some marks over it after barely cutting anything. And here is a test of the end grain. Now, I guess once you see in the light, you can definitely see some marks, but that's honestly only when you're looking at it in the light. When you look at it pretty straight, they pretty much disappear, so that's pretty cool. All right, so after the first test, I'm going ahead and cut a potato up on each one of them. I'm going to be cutting them into fry slices, and that's actually probably going to be my lunch for today. So let's go ahead and do that. Trying not to lose a finger right now. They look pretty good if you ask me. All right, so here's a look of the face grain board after the potato test. Definitely you can see some scratches and some dirt in there. Here's a look at the end grain board. It still honestly looks pretty good. All right, so the second test is complete. And still, again, the face grain board is really taking a hurting, while surprisingly, the end grain board is still looking pretty nice. So now I'm going to do the third test, which is going to be beating the crap out of them, to say it nicely. So I'm going to be doing some sharp jabs in them and see how they hold up with that. And, you know, maybe some light drop tests or maybe some not so light drop tests. I don't know. You'll just have to see. But I've always kind of wanted to do this to a cutting board. So let's go ahead. I'm excited. So after beating the crap out of these boards with a bigger and sharper knife, you can definitely tell that the face grain one took a hit. And surprisingly, this end grain one here still looks actually really good. I'm actually really surprised. All right, so now I want to take them outside and maybe drop them on the driveway a couple times. You know, just your everyday average use. Let's go see what happens. All right, so we're out here. It's a beautiful November day, and we're gonna go ahead and drop these guys. So we're gonna start with the face grain one. All right, I'm gonna start from like mid-height, and I think I'm gonna do it right on the corner. So here we go. Nice chunk out of that one, definitely. All right, now for the end grain one, let's do a corner. That is very interesting. All right, now we're gonna have fun with this. I'm gonna throw this as high as I possibly can, and we're gonna see what happens. All right, I got one try at this, so here we go. So that corner definitely took the brunt of the impact, but it actually held up pretty good. I'm surprised. All right, let's do the end grain one. Are you ready?
That's a lot of damage. How about a little more? No, that's a lot of damage.
So I definitely wouldn't recommend throwing them on your driveway if you want to keep them looking nice, but that's just what I think. All right, so the results are in, and surprisingly, the end grain board really survived pretty good, I think. So here's my conclusion. I definitely wouldn't recommend making a face grain pine board, obviously, unless you're just using it for decoration, but as you can tell with the knife test, it didn't clearly hold up very well. Now, as for the end grain board, I definitely could see one working. They definitely aren't as bad as people make them out to be, but still, if you can find a hardwood, I would definitely go with one of those. So, in the end, you can stop calling people crazy for making pine end grain cutting boards. They're not that bad. I mean, unless you're going to be throwing them 20 feet up in the air on an asphalt driveway, then maybe not. But other than that, this was a pretty cool video to make, and I'm glad I could do some myth busting. So if you enjoyed this video, I ask you to subscribe and maybe hit the like button. That would help out a ton. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.